Now, you talked about Marvel Comics, and you were instrumental, obviously, the artist for one of their biggest series with Star Wars. How did you come to work on Star Wars, and what was the process like getting on that book?
Well, Lucas had seen Cody Starbuck. Lucas was the half owner of a comic book store in Manhattan called Super Snipe. That's what he was doing for income between American Hot
George
Wax.
Lucas was doing.
Yeah, American. Yeah, he was a half owner of a store called Super Snipe on 84th and Second, I think it was. And the guy who ran the store showed him some of the drawings I'd done for Starbuck, which were very influential on the evolution of Han Solo. And for me, the Star Wars stuff was a job. It looked like fun. It didn't turn out to be much fun. One of the reasons that writers liked to work with me in those days was because I did a lot of their work for them. Roy basically handed me the shooting script and asked me to break it into 6 parts, and I did, because I was an idiot. I should have said, "No, you break it up. That's your job." But no, this happened a lot. It's one of the reasons why I ended up becoming a writer and writing my own stuff, mostly out of self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the breakdown, and it didn't lend itself to comic books as much as people like to think it did. I don't believe I did the work, the service it deserved, considering the monolithic billion-dollar franchise it's become. I'd like to think that if I'd known it was going to be this big a deal, I would have done a better job. I can't say that that's true. That may be a dream that as a wish that my heart makes. I don't know. But the reason the work remains so popular is not because of the quality of the work that I brought to it, but because of the brand it represents. And since the comic book companies just have convinced the readers that the character and the material is the brand, as opposed to what I know to be the truth, which is the talent is the brand, I lose. And I posted an exegesis yesterday on Facebook after I had one more time I'd been announced as a guest at a convention using Star Wars artwork, and I said this is ridiculous in that this work is 40 years old, and I'm no longer. It had nothing to do with who I became 3 years after, and that if this is the only thing you think of me when you invite me to your show, or the first thing you think of me when you invite me to your show, then you want to think of inviting someone besides me.
Now, it's important to know that there's a difference between having a strong brand when you're associated, but I think that it also helps a lot of people in their careers when they're associated with a strong brand like a Star Wars, a Batman, because that helps bring in a fan base for you as talent.
It has not done that for me at all.
Really?
Not at all. And furthermore, I think I built a career in the exact opposite direction of what you just described. What you've just described really is how the measure of success in the comic book business. You take Batman, you take a character, Thor, or whatever, and you build your fan base with that. I have done exactly the opposite. I've never done that. I did Revive Blackhawk in 3 issues. I did 4 issues of The Shadow, but I've never really committed myself to taking a commercial mass market superhero and finding an audience with that material, because it didn't interest me enough. Because frankly, comic books is an industry that rewards variations on a theme, as opposed to the shock of the new. And I have a limited attention span, and I like what I like. The fact is, Star Wars brings people. Most of the people who have me sign their Star Wars books, I would say 60% of the people who have me sign their Star Wars comic books at conventions have no idea that I've done anything else since. And that's a horrible thing to admit, but true.
But that's crazy.
It may be so, but bear in mind, Flag. I mean, between Star Wars and Flag, there's a period where I'm doing paperback covers. I'm doing things with Byron Price. I'm learning craft. I do Flag in 1982. It comes out in 83. And Flag sold a number of copies of that back then that today would be considered a monster hit. Back then, it was a marginal hit. It did okay. But Flag never reached the mass audience that Watchmen or Dark Knight did. So that what you've got now is an entire talent pool of people who came into comics in the 90s and the early aughts who used Flag as a training manual. And you've got an audience that never saw Flag, who presumes that I might have borrowed this trope or that technique from people who borrowed it from me. Flag had a much tinier audience, but it reached every professional who ever became a professional in the 80s, 90s, and early aughts.
It was definitely a visionary.
A deeply influential book, I know.
Absolutely. I mean, so much of the 80s comic book has actually originated in American Flag. And
I couldn't agree more.
And people just had no idea that.
And they still don't know.
And we're hopefully going to bring a little bit of light to that.
Not likely.
But when
You can't convince an audience of what it knows.